Ethan Sterling never expected his past to catch up with him on a luxury cruise until he saw Maya, the woman who disappeared 7 years ago, with a little boy who had his eyes. As their son pointed at him and asked, "Mummy, is that my daddy?" Ethan's world changed forever. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Ethan Sterling stood at the railing of the Majestic Sea, the luxury cruise ship that would be his home for the next 7 days. At 42, he had finally given in to his assistant's nagging and taken his first vacation in 5 years. The ocean breeze ruffled his sandy blonde hair, now showing touches of distinguished grey at the temples. His green eyes surveyed the busy pool deck below, watching families and couples enjoying the first day of their cruise. "Mr. Sterling, your champagne." A steward approached with a silver tray. "Thank you." Ethan took the glass, wondering why he had let Rebecca talk him into this trip. A workaholic CEO of Sterling Enterprises, he felt out of place among people actually enjoying their lives. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Rebecca checking to make sure he hadn't sneaked into the business center to work. The text read, "Remember our deal. No work calls for at least 3 days. The company won't collapse without you. Try to have fun for once." Ethan smiled and put his phone away. Rebecca had been his assistant for 10 years and knew him better than anyone. She had practically forced him onto this cruise, insisting that even he needed a break sometimes. He took a sip of champagne and decided to explore the ship. The Majestic Sea was one of the most luxurious cruise liners in the world, with multiple restaurants, pools, theaters, and activities. Surely he could find something to occupy his time for a week. As Ethan walked along the upper deck, his eyes caught a glimpse of a woman by the pool. Something about her made him stop in his tracks. She had her back to him, but that dark hair falling in soft waves down her back seemed so familiar. When she turned slightly to reach into her beach bag, his heart nearly stopped. Maya, it couldn't be. For after all these years, it couldn't possibly be her. But when the woman stood up and turned, Ethan felt the world slip away beneath his feet. It was Maya Brooks, the woman he had loved more than anything, the woman who had disappeared from his life 7 years ago without a word. She looked exactly the same, yet somehow more beautiful. Her olive skin glowed in the sunlight, and her dark eyes sparkled as she laughed at something. Ethan couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He was transported back to their last night together, when everything had seemed perfect. Then he noticed the little boy next to her, blonde hair, green eyes, a smile that hit Ethan like a physical blow because he'd seen it in the mirror his entire life. The boy was bouncing excitedly, pointing at something in the water. Maya kneeled down beside him, her arm around his small shoulders. The resemblance was undeniable. The child looked exactly like Ethan had in his childhood photos. "It can't be," Ethan whispered to himself, his mind racing to calculate dates and possibilities. The boy looked about 5 or 6 years old. 7 years ago, Maya had left him without explanation. The timing fit perfectly. Did he have a son? A child he knew nothing about? Before Ethan could process this earth-shattering realization, the boy looked up. Their eyes met across the deck, and something flickered across the child's face. A spark of recognition that made no sense, but was undeniably there. The boy tugged at Maya's sleeve and pointed directly at Ethan. Even from a distance, Ethan could read the words on the child's lips. "Mommy, is that my daddy?" Maya's reaction was instant. Her whole body tensed as she followed her son's gaze. When her eyes locked with Ethan's, her face drained of color. She grabbed the boy's hand, quickly gathering their belongings. Ethan snapped out of his shock and moved toward them, pushing past other passengers. He couldn't let her disappear again, not now, not with questions that needed answers. "Maya!" he called out, his voice carrying over the noise of the crowded deck. She froze at the sound of his voice. Slowly, she turned to face him, still holding tightly to the boy's hand. "Ethan," she said, his name barely audible on her lips. They stood there, separated by just a few feet, but by years of silence and secrets. The little boy looked up at Ethan with curious eyes, eyes that matched his own. "Maya," Ethan said again, his voice low but urgent. "What is going on?" She swallowed hard, glancing around at the other passengers, who were beginning to notice the tension between them. "Not here," she finally said. "Noah has a kids' club meeting in 15 minutes. We can talk after I drop him off." Noah, his son's name was Noah. "I'll wait," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving her face. Maya nodded, then knelt down to the boy's level. "Noah, sweetie, this is an old friend of Mommy's. His name is Ethan." Noah smiled brightly, extending his small hand. "Hi, Ethan. I'm Noah, and I'm 5.5. Ethan's hand shook as he gently shook his son's hand. "It's very nice to meet you, Noah." "Are you coming to the kids' club too?" Noah asked hopefully. "No, honey," Maya interrupted. "Ethan and I need to talk about some grown-up things. Remember I told you about the pirate treasure hunt they're having today?" Noah's eyes lit up, and he was quickly distracted from the strange man who looked so much like him. "We'll meet at the Star Lounge in 20 minutes, Maya said to Ethan, her voice steady but her eyes revealing her panic. Ethan nodded, watching as she led Noah away, his mind spinning with questions. He made his way to the Star Lounge, ordered a scotch and tried to prepare himself for the conversation that would change his life forever. Maya's hands trembled as she signed Noah into the kids' club. She had always known this. Day might come, but she had never imagined it would happen like this, trapped on a cruise ship with nowhere to escape. "Are you okay, ma'am?" the young woman at the sign-in desk asked. "Yes, fine," Maya answered, forcing a smile. "Just a little seasick." After making sure Noah was happily engaged in the treasure hunt, Maya took a deep breath and headed to the Star Lounge. Each step felt heavier than the last. What would she say to Ethan? How could she explain the choices she had made? She spotted him immediately when she entered the lounge. Even after all these years, he still commanded attention just by being in a room. He sat in a corner booth staring into his drink, his strong profile exactly as she remembered. Maya approached the table and Ethan looked up. For a moment, neither spoke. "You look good," he finally said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "So do you," she replied, sliding into the booth across from him. Ethan didn't waste time with small talk. "Is he mine?" Maya met his gaze directly. "Yes, Noah is your son." The confirmation hit Ethan like a physical blow. He closed his eyes briefly, gripping his glass so tightly his knuckles turned white. Why? The single word contained years of hurt and confusion. "Why did you leave? Why? Didn't you tell me I had a son?" Maya took a deep breath. "It's complicated, Ethan." "Complicated?" His voice rose slightly before he controlled it. "You disappeared 7 years ago without a word, and now I find out I have a 5-year-old son I knew nothing about. I think I deserve more than it's complicated." "You're right," Maya conceded. "You do deserve an explanation." She signaled to a passing server and ordered a glass of wine. She needed something to steady her nerves. "Do you remember how things were when I left?" she asked after the server moved away. "We were happy," Ethan said firmly. "At least I thought we were. I was just starting to build Sterling Enterprises. We had plans." "You were building your empire," Maya corrected gently. "You were working 20-hour days, canceling our dates, falling asleep during dinner when you did show up. You were obsessed with making your company successful. So you left because I was working hard to build a future for us." Ethan's voice was incredulous. Maya shook her head. "No, that wasn't it. The night before I left, I tried to tell you I was pregnant. You came home after midnight, exhausted. You said, and I quote, 'Maya, whatever it is, can it wait? I have to be up in 4 hours for a meeting that will make or break the company.'" Ethan's expression changed as the memory surfaced. "I remember that night. You seemed upset, but I thought it was because I was working so much. The next morning, you were gone before I woke up," Maya continued. "I decided to surprise you at your office with lunch to try again to tell you about the baby." She paused as the server brought her wine. After taking a sip, she continued, "When I got there, I overheard you talking to your brother James. You said your relationship with me was becoming a distraction. You said you needed to focus entirely on the business for the next few years, and that settling down and playing house would have to wait." Ethan's face paled. "Maya, that wasn't—" "I didn't stay to hear more," she interrupted. I left, and I decided that I wouldn't force you to choose between your dreams and a family you weren't ready for. So you made that choice for me, Ethan said, anger edging into his voice. You decided I didn't deserve to know I had a son. I was 26 and scared, Maya replied. I loved you too much to be the reason your company failed. And I was terrified of raising a child with a father who would resent us for holding him back. That's not fair, Ethan protested. You never gave me a chance. You're right, Maya admitted. It wasn't fair. But I did what I thought was best at the time. Ethan stared at her, his emotions warring on his face. Where have you been all these years? Seattle, she answered. I moved in with my cousin until Noah was born, then got a job teaching at an elementary school. We've had a good life. Does Noah know about me? Ethan asked, his voice softer now. Maya nodded. I've always told him his daddy was a businessman who couldn't be with us. I have pictures of you in his baby album. I never wanted him to think you abandoned him, or that you didn't exist. But I didn't know he existed, Ethan said, the pain evident in his voice. I know. Maya looked down at her hands. About 6 months ago, Noah started asking more questions about you. He wanted to know why his friends had daddies and he didn't. I was planning to contact you after this trip. Why now, after all this time? Because Noah needs his father, Maya said simply, and because I realized I had no right to keep him from you regardless of my fears. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. I want to know him, Maya. I've lost 5 years of his life already. I don't want to lose any more. Maya nodded. I know, that's why I was going to contact you. And us? Ethan asked, his eyes meeting hers. What about us? Maya looked away. There is no us, Ethan. There's just Noah. He's what matters now. Before Ethan could respond, Maya's phone chimed with a text. The kids' club is ending early because of some schedule change. I have to go pick up Noah. She stood, then hesitated. Would you like to come with me? We could tell him together who you really are. Ethan's heart raced at the prospect of being properly introduced to his son. Are you sure he's ready for that? He's been asking about you for months, Maya said. And honestly, the way he looked at you earlier, I think on some level he already knows. Ethan nodded and stood, leaving some bills on the table. As they walked toward the kids' club in silence, he tried to prepare himself for one of the most important moments of his life, meeting his son. When they arrived, Noah was sitting with a group of children, proudly showing off a paper pirate, hat and a small treasure chest filled with chocolate coins. When he spotted Maya, he jumped up and ran to her. Mommy, look what I found, he exclaimed, holding up his treasure. Then he noticed Ethan, and his smile widened. You came back. Do you want to see my treasure too? Ethan knelt down to Noah's level. I'd love to see your treasure. Noah proudly opened the chest and offered Ethan a chocolate coin. You can have one. I have lots. Thank you, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion as he accepted the small gift from his son. Maya knelt beside them. Noah, remember how you've been asking about your daddy? Noah nodded, suddenly serious. Well, Maya continued, this is him. This is your daddy. Noah's eyes widened as he looked at Ethan. Really? You're my real daddy? Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Noah studied him intently, then broke into a huge smile. I knew it. I saw your picture in Mommy's special box and you have eyes like mine. Without warning, Noah threw himself into Ethan's arms. Instinctively, Ethan wrapped his arms around his son, holding him close as years of unknown longing crashed. Over him, I found a better treasure than chocolate, Noah whispered in Ethan's ear. Ethan looked over Noah's shoulder at Maya, who was watching them with tears in her eyes. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the years of separation, not the hurt or the confusion. All that mattered was that he had found his son, and somehow they would find a way forward together. As Noah pulled back to show Ethan more of his pirate adventure souvenirs, Ethan made a silent promise to himself and to his son. He would not miss another day of Noah's life. Whatever it took, he would be the father that Noah deserved, and perhaps in time he and Maya could find a way to heal the wounds of the past. For now, though, discovering his son was miracle enough. The next morning, Ethan woke early in his luxury, Sweet, still trying to process the events of the previous day. He had a son, a bright, beautiful 5-year-old boy who had been living his entire life without a father. The thought sent a wave of both joy and pain through Ethan's chest. After meeting Noah at the kids' club, they had spent the rest of the afternoon together. Noah had eagerly shown Ethan around the ship's children's areas, chattering non-stop about pirates, dinosaurs, and his kindergarten class back home. Ethan had absorbed every word, every gesture, trying to make up for 5 lost years in just a few hours. Maya had been quiet, watching them interact with a mixture of relief and caution in her eyes. When Noah started to get tired, she had suggested they call it a day. They had arranged to meet for breakfast this morning at the seaside cafe. Ethan checked his watch. It was only 6:30 a.m., but he was too anxious to sleep any longer. He showered and dressed carefully, choosing casual clothes instead of his usual business attire. Today wasn't about being CEO Ethan Sterling, it was about being Noah's dad. As he made his way to the cafe, Ethan's phone rang. It was James, his younger brother, and the COO of Sterling Enterprises. "Please tell me you're actually relaxing and not working from your suite," James said when Ethan answered. "I'm relaxing," Ethan replied, not ready to share his life-changing discovery. "How's everything at the office?" "Everything's fine. The Peterson deal is moving forward and the quarterly reports look good. But that's not why I called." "Oh?" Ethan stopped walking, sensing something in his brother's tone. "Victoria called the office looking for you," James said, referring to Ethan's on-again, off-again girlfriend of the past year. She seemed upset. "That you didn't tell her about your cruise. Said something about how she thought you two were getting serious." Ethan sighed. His relationship with Victoria Harrington, the daughter of one of his company's biggest investors, had always been more about business compatibility than genuine connection. She was beautiful, intelligent, and moved in the right social circles, but Ethan had never felt for her what he had once felt for Maya. "Victoria and I are taking a break," Ethan said. "I thought she understood that." "Well, apparently she didn't get the memo," James replied. "She mentioned something about joining you on the cruise, said she could fly out to the next port." "What?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "Tell her I need this time alone. I'll talk to her when I get back." "All right, but you know how persistent she can be," James warned. "Anyway, enjoy your vacation and try to stay away from your email for at least a few days, okay?" After ending the call, Ethan continued to the cafe, his mind now occupied with this new complication. Victoria showing up would make an already complex situation even more difficult. He spotted Maya and Noah at a table near the windows, overlooking the ocean. Noah was coloring on a paper placemat, while Maya sipped coffee. The morning sunlight caught in her dark hair, and for a moment Ethan was transported back to Sunday mornings in their apartment, when things had been simple and good between them. Noah looked up and his face broke into a huge smile. "Daddy, you came!" He jumped up from his chair and ran to Ethan, wrapping his arms around Ethan's legs. The word "daddy" hit Ethan like a physical force, filling him with an emotion he couldn't name. He knelt down and hugged Noah properly. "Good morning, buddy. Of course I came. I wouldn't miss breakfast with you." As Ethan took a seat at the table, Maya gave him a tentative smile. "He's been up since 5, too excited to sleep," she explained. "He's already told the waiter and 3 other passengers that his daddy is having breakfast with us." Ethan's heart swelled. "I couldn't sleep either," he admitted, then looked at Noah. "What are you coloring there?" "It's our family," Noah explained, pushing the drawing toward Ethan. The crayon picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's Mommy, that's me, and that's you." Ethan stared at the simple drawing, overcome with emotion. "It's perfect," he managed to say. After ordering breakfast, Ethan tried to keep the conversation light for Noah's sake, but there were so many things he wanted to discuss with Maya. As if sensing this, Maya suggested Noah go to the nearby kids' corner to play while they waited for their food. Once Noah was out of earshot but still in sight, Ethan leaned forward. "We need to talk about what happens after this cruise," Maya nodded. "I know. It's all I've been thinking about. I want to be part of his life, Maya. Not just occasional visits or holidays. I want to be a real father to him." "I want that too," Maya said. "That's why I was planning to contact you. But Ethan, our lives are very different now. You're in New York running a major corporation. We're in Seattle. Noah has school, friends, a routine. I can open an office in Seattle, Ethan said without hesitation. Or you and Noah could move to New York. I'll buy you a house, anything you need. Maya's eyes widened. Slow down, Ethan. We can't just uproot Noah's entire life overnight. And I have a job, a life in Seattle. I've already missed 5 years, Ethan said, frustration edging into his voice. I don't want to miss any more. I understand that, Maya replied gently. But we need to think about what's best for Noah. He's just met you. He needs time to build a relationship with you before we make any major changes. Before Ethan could respond, a woman's voice cut through their conversation. Ethan, I thought that was you. Ethan turned to see Victoria Harrington standing beside their table, looking elegant in a white sundress and designer sunglasses. His stomach dropped. Victoria, what are you doing here? Surprising you, silly. Victoria leaned down to kiss his cheek, then looked curiously at Maya. Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend? Ethan stood, attempting to control the situation. Victoria, this is Maya Brooks, an old friend. Maya, this is Victoria Harrington. Victoria extended her hand with a perfect smile. Lovely to meet you. Maya shook Victoria's hand, her expression carefully neutral. Likewise. I didn't know you were on this cruise, Ethan said to Victoria, trying to keep his voice level. That was the point of a surprise, darling, Victoria replied with a light laugh. James mentioned you were taking a vacation, and I thought what better time for us to really talk about our future. I caught the first flight to Miami and just made it before the ship departed. At that moment, Noah came running back to the table. Mommy, Daddy, they have a giant Connect 4 game over there. Victoria's smile froze as she looked from Noah to Ethan, taking in the obvious resemblance. Daddy? She repeated, her voice suddenly brittle. Ethan took a deep breath. Victoria, this is Noah, Maya's son. And yours too, apparently, Victoria said coldly. Her eyes darted between the three of them, putting the pieces together. How interesting that you never mentioned having a child, Ethan. It's a recent discovery, Ethan said quietly. Victoria's expression hardened. I see. Well, I won't intrude on this family reunion. We'll talk later, Ethan. She turned and walked away, her back rigid. I'm sorry about that, Ethan said to Maya after Victoria was gone. Maya gave him a look that suggested she had many questions, but she simply said, We should eat our breakfast before it gets cold. Noah, oblivious to the tension, happily dug into his pancakes, occasionally offering bites to both Maya and Ethan. After breakfast, they decided to explore the ship together. Noah was eager to show Ethan everything he had discovered the day before. As they walked, Noah held both Ethan's and Maya's hands, swinging between them. To anyone watching, they would have looked like any other happy family enjoying their vacation. But Ethan couldn't shake the worry about Victoria's appearance. He knew her well enough to know she wouldn't simply accept the situation and bow out gracefully. Can we go swimming, Daddy? Noah asked, pulling Ethan from his thoughts. That sounds like a great idea, Ethan replied, smiling down at his son. What do you think, Maya? Swimming it is, she agreed. Let's go change into our suits. They arranged to meet at the family pool in 30 minutes. As Ethan headed back to his suite, he spotted Victoria sitting at the ship's bar. She motioned for him to come over. We need to talk, she said as he approached. Ethan sighed but took a seat beside her. Victoria, I'm sorry you found out about Noah like that. I only just learned about him myself yesterday. Victoria sipped her mimosa. So you expect me to believe you had no idea you had a son? That this woman just happened to be on the same cruise as you with a child who looks exactly like you? That's exactly what happened, Ethan replied firmly. Maya and I were together years ago, before I met you. She left, and I didn't know I was pregnant. How convenient, Victoria said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And now that you've found them, what's your plan? To play happy families with your long-lost love and son? I don't have a plan yet, Ethan admitted. But Noah is my son and I'm going to be part of his life. And what about us, Victoria demanded. I thought we were building something together. My father has been talking about merging our companies. We've discussed marriage, Ethan. Discussed a lot of things, Ethan replied carefully. But I never made any promises. Victoria's eyes flashed. So you're throwing away everything we could have had for a woman who kept your child a secret from you? Does that sound like someone you can trust? This isn't about Maya, Ethan said, feeling his temper rise. It's about Noah. He's my son. Victoria, nothing is more important than that. You're making a mistake, Victoria warned. My father won't be pleased to hear about this development. It could affect the Harrington investment in Sterling Enterprises. Ethan stared at her, suddenly seeing her clearly for the first time. Are you threatening me? Victoria took another sip of her drink. I'm simply stating facts. Daddy is very protective of me and he doesn't like to see me hurt. I'm sorry if I hurt you, Ethan said, standing up, but I need to go. My son is waiting for me. As he walked away, Victoria called after him. This isn't over, Ethan. Not by a long shot. Hyacinth at the pool, Maya watched Noah splash in the shallow end, waiting for Ethan to arrive. She was still trying to process the appearance of Victoria Harrington. The woman was clearly more than just a casual acquaintance to Ethan. The proprietary way she had touched his arm, the mention of their future together, it all pointed to a serious relationship. Maya told herself it shouldn't matter. She had given up any claim on Ethan's heart years ago. But seeing him with another woman had stirred feelings she thought she had long buried. Sorry I'm late, Ethan said, appearing beside her in swim trunks and a t-shirt. I got held up. By Victoria? Maya asked before she could stop herself. Ethan sighed. Yes, she's upset. I gathered that, Maya replied. She's your girlfriend. It's complicated, Ethan said, removing his shirt. We've been seeing each other on and off for about a year. Her father is a major investor in my company. I see, Maya said, trying to keep her voice neutral. Well, it's none of my business. Maya, Ethan started, but was interrupted by Noah calling from the pool. Daddy, watch me swim. Ethan turned to the pool, his face lighting up at the sight of his son. I'm watching, buddy. Noah performed an enthusiastic but not very graceful dog paddle across the shallow end, then looked up with a proud grin. That was awesome, Ethan called, then turned back to Maya. He's amazing. You've done an incredible job with him. Thank you, Maya said, genuinely touched by the compliment. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Ethan's expression grew serious. I meant what I said at breakfast. I want to be a real part of his life, whatever it takes. And I meant what I said too, Maya replied. We need to take this slowly for Noah's sake. He's only just met you. If we make too many changes too quickly, it could confuse him. I understand that, Ethan said, his eyes still on Noah in the pool. But I'm not going to be a part-time father who sees his son on occasional weekends. No one is asking you to be, Maya assured him. We'll figure something out that works for all of us. Ethan turned to look at her, his green eyes so like Noah's, intense. What about you, Maya? Is there someone special in your life? Someone Noah calls Dad? Maya shook her head. No. There have been a few dates over the years, but nothing serious. Noah has never called anyone Dad until you. A small smile tugged at Ethan's lips. Good. Daddy, come in the water, Noah called again. Duty calls, Ethan said, then dove into the pool. Maya watched as Ethan and Noah played together, splashing and laughing as if they'd known each other forever. Noah was clearly smitten with his father, and Ethan seemed equally enchanted with his son. The scene made Maya's heart ache with a mixture of joy and regret. Had she made a mistake all those years ago? Should she have given Ethan the chance to choose his family over his business? Watching them together now, it was hard not to wonder what might have been. Later that afternoon, after Noah had worn himself out swimming, they decided to get lunch at one of the ship's casual restaurants. Noah fell asleep at the table, his head resting against Ethan's arm. He really likes you, Maya said softly, smiling at the sight. The feeling is mutual, Ethan replied, gently stroking Noah's hair. I can't believe how quickly I've fallen in love with him. That's how it was for me too, Maya confessed. The moment they put him in my arms, I was completely gone. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both watching Noah sleep. Maya, Ethan finally said, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Maya nodded, suddenly wary. If I had known about the pregnancy, if you had told me. What do you think would have happened? Maya considered the question carefully. I don't know, Ethan. I was so sure at the time that you would see us as an obstacle to your success. Maybe I was wrong. You were wrong, Ethan said firmly. I would have chosen you and Noah, without hesitation. Maya looked away, unable to bear the intensity in his eyes. We can't change the past. No, but we can learn from it, Ethan replied. I don't want to make the same mistakes again. I don't want business or ambition or anything else to come before the people I care about. Before Maya could respond, a shadow fell across their table. She looked up to see Victoria standing there with an older man in an expensive suit. Ethan, Victoria said, her voice artificially bright. What a coincidence, Daddy, this is Ethan Sterling. Ethan, my father, Harold Harrington. Ethan stood carefully, trying not to wake Noah. Mr. Harrington, it's good to see you. I didn't realize you were on board as well. I wasn't, Harold Harrington replied, his tone cool. But Victoria called me quite upset this morning, so I had the company helicopter bring me to the ship at your first port of call. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. This man had enough power and money to have a helicopter deliver him to a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, and he clearly wasn't happy with Ethan. Perhaps we could discuss this privately, Ethan suggested, glancing at Maya and the sleeping Noah. No need, Harold said, his eyes flicking dismissively over Maya. I'll be brief. Victoria tells me you have certain family complications that have recently come to light. While I sympathize with your situation, I have to consider my daughter's happiness and the stability of our business relationship. With all due respect, sir, Ethan replied, his voice level but firm. My personal life and my business dealings are separate matters. Harold's expression hardened. Nothing is separate when you're dealing with the kind of money we're talking about, son. The merger between Sterling Enterprises and Harrington Industries hinges on my approval, and my approval hinges on my daughter's happiness. Victoria gave Maya a smug look. Daddy has been very supportive of our relationship, Ethan. He was as shocked as I was to discover this situation. Noah stirred and opened his eyes, blinking sleepily. Daddy? Who are these people? Harold's eyebrows rose at the word Daddy. Just some business associates, Ethan replied to Noah, then turned back to the Harringtons. This isn't the time or place for this discussion. On the contrary, Harold said, I think it's the perfect time to clarify where things stand. My offer is simple. If you want the merger to proceed, you need to resolve this distraction. Distraction, Ethan repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Maya stood up, gathering her things. We should go, Ethan. Noah needs to rest properly in his bed. Yes, you should go, Victoria agreed with false sweetness. Ethan and my father have important business to discuss. Ethan looked from the Harringtons to Maya and Noah, clearly torn. Go with them, Harold said to Ethan. Think about what I've said. We're here until the ship returns to port on Friday. You have until then to make your decision. As Harold and Victoria walked away, Maya gathered a still groggy Noah into her arms. Let's get him back to the cabin. The walk back to Maya's stateroom was silent, tension radiating from Ethan. When they reached the door, Maya hesitated. Do you want to come in? We could talk after I put him down for his nap. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. Inside the cabin, Maya tucked Noah into the small bedroom area, then returned to find Ethan staring out the porthole window. So, Maya said quietly. That's Victoria's father. Yes, Ethan replied, not turning around. Harold Harrington, CEO of Harrington Industries, one of the most powerful men in New York business circles. And he wants you to marry his daughter. He wants the merger, Ethan corrected. Victoria is just part of the package. Maya sat on the edge of the small sofa. And what do you want, Ethan? Ethan finally turned to face her. 7 years ago, I would have said I wanted success at any cost. Now? He shook his head. Now I just want a chance to be a father to my son. And maybe, he trailed off, his eyes meeting hers. Maybe what? Maya prompted, her heart racing. Maybe a chance to see if there's still something between us, Ethan finished. We've both changed, Maya, but being with you these past 2 days, seeing you with Noah, it feels right in a way nothing has felt right for a very long time. Maya felt a flutter of hope quickly tempered by caution. Ethan, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. And your life is still in New York with your company and apparently a very complicated relationship with Victoria. I told you, Victoria, and It doesn't matter, Maya interrupted. What matters is that you have decisions to make that go well beyond me or even Noah. Harold Harrington just made that very clear. Ethan moved to sit beside her on the sofa. Maya, I meant what I said earlier. I've learned from my mistakes. Nothing is more important to me than being part of Noah's life. And yes, seeing if there's still a chance for us. Business deals come and go. Family is what matters. Maya wanted so badly to believe him, but she had been hurt before, and she had Noah to consider now. I need to know that you're sure, Ethan, really sure, because I can't let Noah get attached to you only to have you disappear when things get complicated. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan promised, taking her hand. Whatever Harold Harrington threatens, whatever Victoria wants, it doesn't change the fact that you and Noah are my priority now. Maya looked down at their joined hands, feeling the familiar warmth of his touch. We have 5 more days on this cruise, she said. Let's use that time to figure out what comes next for all of us. Ethan nodded, bringing her hand to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. 5 days to make up for 7 years. It's a start. From the bedroom doorway came a small voice. Mommy, Daddy, are you going to kiss like in the movies? They turned to see Noah watching them with a hopeful expression. Maya couldn't help but laugh, the tension of the moment broken by her son's innocent question. Maybe someday, buddy, Ethan replied with a smile. For now, how about we all watch a movie? Together? Yes, Noah exclaimed, running to jump between them on the sofa. As they settled in to watch Noah's choice of an animated film, Maya caught Ethan's eye over their son's head. The look they shared was full of questions, possibilities, and the weight of decisions yet to be made. But for now, sitting here with Noah between them, Maya allowed herself to imagine a future she had long ago given up hoping for. The next 2 days aboard the majestic sea flew by in a blur of family activities. Ethan, Maya, and Noah settled into a comfortable routine, spending their days exploring the ship, swimming, watching shows, and making memories together. For Ethan, each moment was precious, a small payment against the years he had missed. Noah had fully embraced having his father in his life, constantly asking questions about Ethan's home, his work, and whether he liked dinosaurs, he did, or broccoli, he didn't. Each question, no matter how small, felt significant to Ethan. They were the building blocks of a relationship he was determined to nurture. Maya watched the bond between father and son grow with a mixture of joy and apprehension. Seeing Noah so happy warmed her heart, but she couldn't help worrying about what would happen when the cruise ended. Would Ethan's commitment to them hold firm once they were back in the real world, with his business and the Harringtons demanding his attention? On the 4th morning of the cruise, Maya woke early, stepping out onto the small balcony of her stateroom to watch the sunrise. Noah was still asleep, worn out from yesterday's adventures. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Ethan standing there, already dressed for the day in shorts and a polo shirt. You're up early, she said, inviting him in with a gesture. Couldn't sleep, Ethan admitted. Too much on my mind. Is Noah awake? Still sound. Asleep. He was exhausted after all that swimming yesterday. Ethan nodded, then held up 2 coffee cups. I brought you some. Still take it with just a splash of cream? Maya was touched that he remembered. Yes, thank you. They moved to the balcony, standing side by side as they sipped their coffee. The sky was painted in hues of pink and gold, the ocean stretching endlessly before them. I haven't seen Victoria or her father since that scene at lunch 2 days ago, Maya commented, breaking the comfortable silence. They're avoiding me, Ethan replied. Typical Harold Harrington tactic. Give me time to sweat over his ultimatum. Maya turned to look at him. And are you sweating over it? No. Ethan's response was immediate and firm. I've been thinking about what really matters, Maya. My company is important to me, yes. I built it from nothing. But at what cost? I've spent 7 years missing birthdays, holidays, weekends, living for my work. And for what? So I could have a bigger office, more zeros in my bank account? You've achieved amazing things, Maya said softly. Don't discount that. I'm not, Ethan replied. But finding out about Noah, seeing what I've missed, it's put everything in perspective. I don't want to be the man who had everything except what really mattered. Maya's heart raced at his words, but she remained cautious. What about the merger? From what I gathered, it's a big deal for your company. It is, Ethan acknowledged, but there are other investors, other opportunities. I won't let Harold Harrington use my personal life as leverage. He set down his coffee cup and turned to face Maya directly. Last night, I made some calls. I've instructed my legal team to start looking into opening a Seattle branch of Sterling Enterprises. I meant what I said, Maya. I want to be part of Noah's life, a real everyday part, not a voice on the phone or a weekend visitor. Maya's eyes widened. Ethan, that's a huge decision. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he replied, taking her hands in his. And it's not just about Noah. It's about us too. These past few days with you, they've reminded me of what we once had, what we could have again. Maya felt her resolve weakening. Being with Ethan again, seeing him with Noah, had reawakened. Feelings she had tried for years to forget. But she couldn't simply forget the past or ignore the complications of their present. Ethan, Mommy? Daddy? Noah's sleepy voice came from inside the cabin. He appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, his pajamas rumpled from sleep. Ethan released Maya's hands and turned to his son with a smile. Good morning, buddy. Did you sleep well? Noah nodded, then came to hug them both. Are we going to the water slides today like you promised? Absolutely, Ethan confirmed. After breakfast, we'll hit the slides. Yay, Noah cheered, suddenly fully awake. Can I have pancakes for breakfast with chocolate chips? Maya laughed. I think we can manage that. Go brush your teeth and get dressed and we'll head to the restaurant. As Noah scampered off to the bathroom, Ethan caught Maya's eye. We'll finish our conversation later? Maya nodded, her mind still spinning from everything Ethan had said. Was it really possible that they could have a second chance, not just for Noah's sake, but for their own? After breakfast, they headed to the ship's water park, where Noah was finally tall enough to try the smaller water slides. Ethan went down each slide with him, their matching laughs echoing across the deck. Maya watched from a nearby lounge chair, taking photos and enjoying the sight of her son's happiness. They look good together, a voice said beside her. Maya turned to find Victoria standing there, looking immaculate in a designer swimsuit and wide-brimmed hat. Victoria, Maya acknowledged, sitting up straighter. Yes, they do. Victoria took the lounge chair next to Maya's without asking. He told you about the merger, I assume? He mentioned it, Maya replied cautiously. It's a $100 million deal, Victoria said, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. The kind that changes lives and legacies. My father rarely offers these kinds of opportunities. And it comes with strings attached, Maya observed. Victoria shrugged elegantly. Everything valuable does. My father believes in family alliances, as well as business ones. He sees Ethan as the son he never had, ambitious, driven, brilliant. And you? Maya asked. Do you love Ethan, or is this just business for you too? Victoria removed her sunglasses, her blue eyes meeting Maya's directly. I care for Ethan. We make sense together. We want the same things, move in the same circles. Love? She smiled thinly. Love is for fairy tales. In the real world, successful partnerships are built on compatibility and mutual benefit. That sounds very practical, Maya said. It is, Victoria agreed. Unlike your approach, which was to disappear with Ethan's child without giving him any choice in the matter. Maya flinched at the direct hit. I made mistakes. I'm trying to correct them now. By disrupting Ethan's life. By threatening the biggest deal of his career. Victoria leaned forward. Let me be blunt, Maya. You had your chance with Ethan. You walked away. He's built a life, a future, without you. Do you really think you can just reappear with a child he never knew about and expect everything to fall into place? Before Maya could respond, Victoria continued, Ethan might be caught up in the emotion of discovering he has a son, but reality will set in eventually. When this cruise ends, he'll return to New York, to his company, to the life he's built. Where will that leave you and Noah? Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Victoria was voicing her own deepest fears, the doubts that had kept her awake. At night, since reuniting with Ethan, "That's for Ethan to decide," Maya finally said. "Not you." Victoria stood, replacing her sunglasses. "Just think about it, Maya. What's really best for Noah? A father who's torn between two worlds, who resents the sacrifice of his life's work, or a clean break now before he gets too attached?" With that, Victoria walked away, leaving Maya with troubling thoughts swirling in her mind. From the water slides, Ethan waved at Maya, pointing excitedly as Noah prepared to go down again. She waved back, forcing a smile. But Victoria's words had planted seeds of doubt that were already taking root. Later that day, while Noah took his afternoon nap, Maya and Ethan sat on the ship's upper deck, watching the ocean roll by. "I saw you talking to Victoria this morning," Ethan said. "What did she want?" Maya hesitated, then decided on honesty. "She wanted to remind me of my place. Out of your life." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. Victoria can be territorial." "She made some valid points," Maya admitted. "About the merger, about your life in New York." "Maya, let me finish," Maya interrupted gently. "Ethan, I need to know that you've really thought this through. Moving to Seattle, walking away from this merger. These are huge decisions that affect your entire future." "I know that," Ethan said. "I'm not making these decisions lightly." "But are you making them for the right reasons?" Maya pressed. "Or are you just caught up in the emotion of meeting Noah?" Ethan took her hand. "I'm making them because I've spent 7 years chasing success and finding emptiness. Because holding my son for the first time made me realize what really matters. And yes, because being with you again has shown me what I've been missing." He moved closer. "Maya, I never stopped loving you. Even after you left, even when I threw myself into work to forget the pain, a part of me was always waiting, hoping you'd come back." Maya's breath caught. "Ethan, I know it won't be easy," he continued. "We have years of separation to overcome, trust to rebuild. But I want to try, Maya. For Noah, for us, for the family we should have been all along." Maya looked into his eyes, those green eyes so like Noah's, and felt her resolve crumbling. "I want to try too," she whispered, "but I'm scared." Instead of replying with words, Ethan leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle at first, hesitant, but quickly deepened with 7 years of longing. Maya's arms wrapped around his neck as she surrendered to the feelings she had tried so hard to deny. When they finally pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "We'll figure it out, Maya. Together this time." Maya nodded, allowing herself to believe, if only for this moment, that they could have their second chance. The sound of slow clapping broke the moment. They turned to see Harold Harrington standing a few feet away, his expression cold. "Very touching," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "The prodigal lover returns and all is forgiven." Ethan stood, positioning himself slightly in front of Maya. "Mr. Harrington, this isn't the time or place for this discussion." "On the contrary," Harold replied, "I think it's the perfect time to make sure we all understand each other. Victoria tells me you're considering backing out of our merger to play house with your long-lost family. I'm considering what's best for everyone involved," Ethan replied evenly. Harold laughed without humor. "Everyone except the shareholders of Sterling Enterprises, apparently. Have you thought about what will happen when word gets out that you're scuttling a $100 million deal for personal reasons? How will the board react? How will the market react?" "My personal life is not open for discussion, Harold. It is when it affects business," Harold countered. "And make no mistake, Ethan, this will affect business. If you walk away from this merger, I'll make it my personal mission to ensure Sterling Enterprises suffers for your poor judgment." Maya stood up, her protective instincts flaring. "You're threatening him because he wants to be with his son." Harold's cold gaze shifted to Maya. "My dear, I'm simply explaining consequences. Actions have them, as you well know. You chose to keep a child from his father for years. Now Ethan is choosing emotional impulse over business sense. Choices, consequences. He turned back to Ethan. You have until tomorrow to reconsider. After that, the offer is off the table, permanently. And I promise you, walking away will cost you far more than you realize. With that, Harold strode away, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. Ethan, Maya began, maybe we should... No, Ethan interrupted firmly. Don't let him get into your head, Maya. Harold Harrington is used to getting his way through intimidation. I won't let him dictate my life or my choices. But what if he's right? Maya asked. What if this decision costs you your company? I couldn't live with myself knowing I caused that. Ethan took her face in his hands. Listen to me. If the price of keeping my company is giving up you and Noah, then it's not worth keeping. I built Sterling Enterprises from nothing once. I can do it again if I have to. But I can't get back these years with Noah, and I won't risk losing any. More time with either of you. His certainty should have been reassuring, but Maya couldn't shake the fear that Ethan would eventually resent the sacrifice. That once the novelty of fatherhood wore off, he would look back on this decision with regret. Let's get back to Noah, she suggested, needing space to think. He'll be waking up from his nap soon. As they walked back to the cabin, Maya's mind was in turmoil. She loved Ethan. She had never truly stopped loving him. And seeing him with Noah had shown her what a wonderful father he could be. But was it fair to let him risk everything for them? Could their rekindled relationship really survive the weight of such sacrifice? When they reached the cabin, Noah was still sleeping peacefully. Maya turned to Ethan at the door. I need some time to think, she said quietly. This is all happening so fast, and there's so much at stake. Ethan nodded, though disappointment flickered in his eyes. I understand we have a dinner reservation at the Starlight restaurant at 7. Will that give you enough time? Yes, Maya replied. We'll see you then. After Ethan left, Maya sat on the edge of the bed watching Noah sleep. Her beautiful boy, who had finally found his father. The thought of taking that away from him now was painful, but so was the thought of Ethan sacrificing his life's work, only to resent them later. When Noah woke, he immediately asked for his Daddy. Is he coming back soon? We're meeting him for dinner, Maya assured him. But first, how about we go to the arcade for a while? Just you and me. Noah agreed happily, and they spent the next couple of hours playing games and winning small prizes. But even as Maya smiled and cheered for Noah's victories, her mind was working through the impossible choice before her. By the time they returned to the cabin to get ready for dinner, Maya had made her decision. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't what her heart wanted, but she believed it was the right thing to do for all of them. She dressed Noah in his nicest clothes, the little button-up shirt and khaki pants she had packed for formal night. Then she put on a simple blue dress that Ethan had once told her brought out the warmth in her dark eyes. You look pretty, Mommy, Noah said as they prepared to leave. Thank you, sweetie, Maya replied, kissing the top of his head. You look very handsome yourself. When they arrived at the Starlight restaurant, Ethan was waiting for them at the entrance. He wore a tailored blazer over a crisp white shirt, looking every bit the successful businessman he was. His face lit up when he saw them. There are my two favorite people, he said, kneeling to hug Noah. Daddy, we went to the arcade and I won a stuffed shark, Noah exclaimed. That's awesome, buddy. You'll have to show me later. As Ethan stood, his eyes met Maya's and his smile faltered slightly. Everything okay? Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She hadn't realized how hard this would be. The hostess led them to a table with a spectacular view of the sunset over the ocean. Noah chatted excitedly about the arcade games and the shark he had won, while Ethan listened attentively, asking questions that delighted the boy. Maya watched them together, memorizing every detail. The way Noah's eyes lit up when Ethan laughed, the gentle way Ethan helped Noah with his menu, the matching tilt of their heads as they debated the merits of chocolate cake versus ice cream for dessert. After they ordered, Ethan turned to Maya. You've been quiet. Are you sure everything's all right? Just enjoying watching you two together, Maya replied with a small smile. Dinner was delicious, but Maya barely tasted her food. Noah, on the other hand, declared the spaghetti the best ever, and managed to get sauce on his shirt despite Ethan's best efforts to help him eat neatly. Like father, like son, Maya commented. You always got spaghetti sauce on your shirts too. Ethan laughed. Some things never change. As they finished their meal, a small band began playing near the dance floor. The soft, romantic music filled the restaurant. Daddy, dance with Mommy, Noah suggested suddenly. Like in the movies, Ethan's eyes met Maya's, a question in them. She hesitated, then nodded. One dance couldn't hurt, one last memory to hold on to. Ethan led her to the dance floor, his hand warm against the small of her back. As they began to sway to the music, he pulled her close. I've been thinking about us all day, he murmured against her hair, about our future. I know we have challenges ahead, but Maya, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You and Noah are my priority now. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to give up, it's worth it to have you both in my life. Maya closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. He pulled back slightly to look at her face. What is it? I've made a decision, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tomorrow morning, Noah and I are leaving the ship at the next port. We're flying back to Seattle. Ethan stopped dancing, his body going rigid. What? Why? Because it's the right thing to do, Maya replied, willing him to understand. You have a life in New York, Ethan. A company that needs you, people who depend on you. I can't let you throw all that away on an emotional decision you might regret later. Maya, no, Ethan protested. This isn't an emotional decision. I've thought it through carefully. I want to be with you and Noah. I want us to be a family. And I want that too, Maya admitted, tears now falling freely. But not like this. Not with Harold Harrington's threats hanging over us. Not with your company at risk. Not with the chance that someday you'll look at us and see the reason you lost everything you worked for. That would never happen, Ethan insisted, wiping away her tears with his thumb. You don't know that, Maya said. Neither of us can predict the future. But I know you, Ethan. Your company isn't just a job, it's part of who you are. I can't be responsible for taking that away from you. Ethan's expression hardened. So you're making this decision for me? Just like you decided not to tell me about Noah 7 years ago? When do I get a say in my own life, Maya? His words stung, but Maya stood her ground. This isn't the same thing. I'm not disappearing. You know about Noah now, and nothing will change that. You can visit him, be part of his life. But we need to be realistic about how we move forward. Realistic, Ethan repeated, his voice rising slightly. What's realistic about walking away from the people you love? Sometimes loving someone means doing what's best for them, even when it hurts, Maya said softly. Before Ethan could respond, Noah called from the table, Mommy, Daddy, are you done dancing? Can we get dessert now? They returned to the table, both forcing smiles for Noah's sake. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of chocolate cake and strained conversation. Noah, sensing the tension, became increasingly clingy with Ethan, as if afraid his newfound father might disappear. When they finished dinner, Ethan walked them back to their cabin. At the door, Noah hugged him tightly. Will you read me a story? Before bed, Daddy? He asked hopefully. Ethan looked at Maya, who nodded despite herself. She couldn't deny Noah this time with his father, especially if they were leaving tomorrow. Ethan read Noah's favorite story twice, then sat beside his bed until the boy fell asleep. Maya watched from the doorway, her heart breaking at the sight. When Ethan finally emerged from the bedroom area, his eyes were red-rimmed. You can't do this, Maya, he said quietly. You can't take him away from me, not now that I've found him. I'm not taking him away, Maya insisted. You can visit whenever you want. We can arrange regular video calls. Noah will know his father. It's not the same, and you know it. Ethan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Why are you really doing this? Is it because of what Harold said, or is it something else? Maya sank onto the small sofa. It's everything, Ethan. It's the merger. It's Victoria. It's the fact that we barely know each other anymore. It's the fear that we're rushing into something that neither of us is ready for. Ethan sat beside her, taking her hands. Maya, look at me. These past few days haven't been about rushing into anything. They've been about finding what we lost, Yes, we've changed, but the core of who we are, that's the same. I still love you, I think I always have. His words made Maya's resolve waver. I love you too, she admitted. That's why this is so hard. But it's also why I have to do it. I can't be the reason you lose everything you've worked for. You're not listening to me, Ethan said, frustration evident in his voice. You and Noah are more important than any business deal. You say that now, Maya replied. But what about 6 months from now, a year, when the reality of what you've given up starts to sink in? You don't trust me, Ethan realized, pulling his hands away. After everything I've said, everything I've promised, you still don't believe I can put you and Noah first. It's not about trust, Maya argued. It's about being practical. No, it's about fear, Ethan countered. You're afraid to believe that this could work, that we could be a real family. So you're running away again, just like you did 7 years ago. His words hit too close to home, and Maya stood up. I think you should go now. We have an early flight to catch tomorrow. Ethan rose slowly. Maya, please don't do this. Give us a chance. The pain in his eyes nearly broke her resolve, but Maya forced herself to stay strong. I'm sorry, Ethan. My mind is made up. For a long moment he simply looked at her, as if memorizing her face. Then, without another word, he turned and left the cabin. When the door closed behind him, Maya sank to the floor, silent sobs racking her body. Had she made the right decision? Or had she just made the biggest mistake of her life? Again. In the bedroom, Noah slept peacefully, unaware that his world was about to change once more. And somewhere on the ship, Ethan faced his own impossible choice: accept Maya's decision and return to the life he had built without them, or fight for the family he had just discovered, even if it meant risking everything else. The Majestic. Sea continued its journey through the night, carrying all three of them toward a future none of them could predict. Maya woke before dawn, her eyes swollen from crying herself to sleep. For a moment she lay still, listening to Noah's soft breathing from the small bedroom. Today they would leave the ship at the port of Nassau and catch the first flight back to Seattle. Back to their normal life, leaving Ethan behind. Her chest ached at the thought, but she pushed the pain aside. This was the right decision, for everyone. Wasn't it? She slipped out of bed and began quietly packing their things. Her hands trembled as she folded Noah's clothes, remembering how excited he had been to show his new shark toy to Ethan. How would she explain to her son that they were leaving his daddy behind? A soft knock on the door startled her. It was barely 6 a.m. Who could be visiting at this hour? Maya opened the door to find Rebecca, Ethan's assistant. I'm sorry to disturb you so early, Rebecca said, her expression serious. But Ethan asked me to give you this. She handed Maya an envelope. Thank you, Maya replied, taking it hesitantly. How did you know where to find us? I'm Ethan's assistant, Rebecca said with a small smile. It's my job to know things. He also asked me to tell you that he respects your decision, but he hopes you'll read this before you leave. With that, Rebecca turned and walked away, leaving Maya staring at the envelope in her hands. She closed the door and sat on the edge of the sofa, her fingers tracing her name written in Ethan's familiar handwriting. Taking a deep breath, she opened it. Dear Maya, if you're reading this, it means you're still planning to leave. I've spent the night trying to find the right words to change your mind, but perhaps what you need isn't more words from me, but proof. 7 years ago, you left because you overheard me saying my relationship with you was a distraction from my business. You didn't stay to hear the rest of that conversation with James. I told him that while I was worried about balancing work and personal life, I had decided to propose to you that weekend. I had the ring in my pocket when you disappeared. I threw myself into work after you left, not because it was more important to me than you, but because it was all I had left. Success became my way of filling the void you left behind. Now I found you again and, more incredibly, discovered I have a son. Nothing, no business deal, no amount of money, no threat from Harold Harrington could ever be more important than that. To prove I mean this, I've made some decisions. I've instructed my lawyers to begin setting up a Seattle office of Sterling Enterprises, with me as the resident CEO. 2. I've informed the board of directors that I am willing to step down as CEO of the New York office if necessary to pursue this family opportunity. 3. I've officially withdrawn from merger talks with Harrington Industries. These decisions were made before you told me you were leaving. They are not a reaction to your decision, but a reflection of my priorities. Maya, I understand your fears. I know you're trying to protect me from making a choice I might regret, but the only choice I would truly regret is letting you and Noah walk out of my life again. I won't force you to stay. I won't make Noah a pawn in an emotional game between us. But I am begging you to reconsider. Stay for the last 2 days of the cruise. Give us these days to talk about the future, to make plans that work for all of us. If after that you still believe leaving is the right choice, I will respect your decision. Whatever you decide, know this: I will be part of Noah's life. I will visit him, call him, support him in every way possible, and I will never stop hoping that someday you'll trust me enough to give us the chance we deserve. I love you. I never stopped. Ethan Maya's hands shook as she finished reading. Tears blurred her vision, falling onto the paper and smudging the ink. Ethan had already made his decisions, taken action, before she'd even told him she was leaving. He truly was choosing them over everything else. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Maya looked up to see Noah standing in the bedroom doorway, his hair rumpled from sleep, his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched in one arm. "I'm just a little sad, sweetie," Maya explained, quickly wiping her tears. Noah climbed into her lap, his small hands patting her cheeks. "Don't be sad, Mommy. Is it because we're going home today? I don't want to go either. I want to stay with Daddy." Maya's heart clenched. "How did you know we were going home?" "I heard you talking to Daddy last night," Noah admitted. "You said we have an early flight, but I don't want to go, Mommy. Please, can we stay?" Maya hugged her son close, her mind racing. She had been so sure she was doing the right thing, protecting Ethan from making a decision he might regret. But what if she was wrong? What if, in her attempt to prevent history from repeating itself, she was actually making the same mistake all over again, making a life-altering decision without giving Ethan a choice? "Let me think about it, okay?" she said to Noah, kissing the top of his head. "Can we have breakfast with Daddy while you think?" Noah asked hopefully. Maya smiled despite her conflicted feelings. "Yes, we can have breakfast with Daddy." She helped Noah get dressed, then sent a text to Ethan. "We're not leaving yet. Can we meet for breakfast, the usual place at 8? His response came immediately. "I'll be there." Ethan arrived at the seaside cafe 20 minutes early, his heart pounding with hope and fear. Maya's text had been brief, giving no indication of whether she had changed her mind or just wanted to say goodbye properly. After his argument with Maya last night, he had stayed up for hours, alternating between anger and despair. Then around 3 a.m., clarity had hit him. If he truly wanted to prove to Maya that she and Noah were his priority, he needed to show her with actions, not just words. He had spent the rest of the night making calls, waking up his lawyers and board members on the East Coast to set his plans in motion. By dawn, the decisions he'd outlined in his letter to Maya were official. Even if she still chose to leave, there was no going back on the professional choices he had made. "Mr. Sterling." Ethan looked up to see Harold Harrington approaching his table, looking immaculate despite the early hour. "Harold," Ethan acknowledged coolly, "I believe my assistant delivered my message to you. The merger is off." Harold sat down uninvited. "So I heard. A reckless decision made in the heat of emotion." "No," Ethan countered. "A carefully considered choice based on my priorities. Family comes first, Harold. Something you might understand if you hadn't spent Victoria's entire life teaching her that business matters more than people." Harold's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, Sterling. One that will cost you dearly." "The only mistake would be letting Maya and Noah go again," Ethan replied evenly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm expecting them for breakfast." Harold stood, adjusting his jacket. "This isn't over. When you return to New York, you'll find the business landscape much changed. I have considerable influence, and you've made a powerful enemy. I'll take my chances," Ethan said, unmoved by the threat. Harold turned to leave but stopped as Maya approached with Noah. He gave her a cold look, then walked away without another word. Noah ran ahead to Ethan. "Daddy, we didn't leave. Mommy said we can stay." Ethan scooped his son into a hug, his eyes meeting Maya's over Noah's head. The question in them was clear. Was this just a delay, or had she changed her mind? "Why don't you go look at the breakfast buffet, Noah?" Maya suggested. "You can tell us what looks good." Once Noah was out of earshot, Maya sat across from Ethan. "I got your letter." "And?" Ethan prompted when she didn't continue. "You've already done it?" she asked. "Withdrawn from the merger? Set up the Seattle office?" Ethan nodded. "The paperwork is being finalized as we speak." "Why?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you risk so much?" "Because some things are worth risking everything for," Ethan replied simply. "I meant what I wrote, Maya. This isn't a decision I made lightly, or one I'll regret. It's the right choice for me, for us, if you'll give us a chance." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared, Ethan. I'm scared that this is all happening too fast, that we're making decisions based on emotion rather than reality. I'm scared that someday you'll resent us for what you gave up." Ethan reached across the table to take her hands. "I understand those fears. But Maya, think about what we're risking if we don't try. Noah deserves to have both his parents in his life, and we deserve the chance to see if what we once had, what I believe we still have, can grow into something even stronger." "What about Harold's threats?" Maya asked. "He looked furious just now." "Harold Harrington is used to getting his way," Ethan said. "He'll be angry for a while, but he'll move on to another target. My company is strong enough to weather whatever storm he creates. And Victoria? Victoria and I were never right for each other," Ethan said firmly. "She knew it as well as I did. Our relationship was about business connections, not love. She'll find another CEO to fulfill her father's ambitions." Maya was quiet for a moment, processing everything. "So what happens now?" she finally asked. "That's up to you," Ethan replied. "I'm moving to Seattle with or without your blessing. I'll be part of Noah's life, even if it's just as his father and not as your partner. But what I hope happens is that you'll give us a chance to be a real family." Noah returned to the table, then excitedly describing the pancakes and waffles he'd spotted at the buffet. The conversation paused as they all went to get food, with Noah insisting on holding both their hands. As they ate breakfast, Maya watched Ethan with their son, the way he cut Noah's pancakes into bite-sized pieces, the patience with which he answered each of Noah's endless questions, the love that shone in his eyes with every interaction. This was a side of Ethan she had never seen before, a side that even he hadn't known existed until he discovered he was a father. By the time they finished eating, Maya had made her decision. "I'd like to stay," she said quietly to Ethan while Noah was distracted by a passing waiter with a tray of desserts. "For the rest of the cruise, and when we get back," she took a deep breath. "When we get back, I want to try, really try to make this work. I can't promise it will be easy, and I can't promise I won't still have doubts and fears. But I want to give us a chance, Ethan, for Noah and for us." The smile that broke across Ethan's face was like the sun emerging from behind clouds. "That's all I'm asking for, Maya, a chance." He leaned across the table and kissed her, a gentle kiss filled with promise. When they pulled apart, they realized Noah was watching them with wide eyes and a huge grin. "Are you going to marry my daddy now, Mommy?" he asked excitedly. Maya and Ethan both laughed, the tension of the past days finally breaking. "One step at a time, buddy," Ethan said, ruffling Noah's hair. "But I think we're headed in the right direction." So is two we weirdos. The final 2 days of the cruise passed in a blur of family activities and quiet conversations. Maya and Ethan spent their evenings talking after Noah was asleep, rebuilding the foundation of trust that had been broken 7 years ago. They shared stories of the years they had been apart, discovered the ways they had changed, and the core values that remained the same. On the last night of the cruise, they attended the captain's formal dinner. Noah wore a tiny tuxedo that Ethan had bought for him in the ship's boutique, proudly telling everyone who would listen that he was matching his daddy. As they posed for a family photo, Maya felt a sense of rightness wash over her. This was what Noah deserved, both his parents together supporting and loving him. And perhaps it was what she and Ethan deserved too, a second chance at the love they had nearly lost forever. After dinner, they strolled along the upper deck, Noah running ahead to look at the stars with a group of other children and their cruise staff guide. "I got a call from James this afternoon," Ethan said as they walked hand in hand. "The Seattle office space has been secured. It's not far from your neighborhood, actually." "That was fast," Maya commented. "Are you sure the board is okay with all this?" "They're not thrilled," Ethan admitted, "but they respect my decision. I've promised to split my time between Seattle and New York for the first year until the new office is fully established. After that, I'll be based in Seattle permanently, with quarterly trips to New York." "And Harold Harrington?" "He's made good on his threats," Ethan said with a shrug. "Pulled his investments, convinced a few others to do the same. Our stock dropped a bit, but it's already starting to recover. The company will be fine, Maya." "And us?" Maya asked softly. "Will we be fine?" Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her. "I believe we will. It won't always be easy. We have 7 years to make up for, trust to rebuild. But I know what I want now, Maya. I want you and Noah. I want family dinners and weekend trips and school plays. I want to be there for all. The moments I've missed. I want that too," Maya whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I've always wanted that, even when I was too afraid to admit it." Ethan pulled her close, kissing her beneath the stars as the ship cut through the dark waters. The kiss was a promise, a new beginning, a future they would build together. "Ooh, Mommy and Daddy are kissing again." Noah's voice broke the moment, followed by giggles from the other children. Ethan and Maya separated, laughing as Noah ran back to them, insisting it was his turn for hugs. Fathan lifted him into his arms, and Noah wrapped one arm around each of their necks, pulling them together in a family embrace. "I love you, Mommy. I love you, Daddy," Noah declared. "We love you too, buddy," Ethan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "More than you'll ever know." Over their son's head, Maya and Ethan's eyes met, sharing a silent acknowledgement of how close they had come to missing this, to losing the chance at being a family. "Let's go home," Maya said softly. "Home," Ethan repeated, the word filled with new meaning. No longer just a place, but the three of them together. Wherever they were, that would be home. 1 year later, the Seattle sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the backyard of the Sterling family home. Colorful balloons and streamers decorated the fence, and a large banner proclaiming "Happy 7th Birthday, Noah," hung between 2 trees. Maya stood at the kitchen window, watching as Ethan helped Noah set up the games for his birthday party. The past year had been a journey of adjustment, compromise, and growing love. They had faced challenges, Ethan's demanding travel schedule in the early months, Maya's lingering fears about his commitment, the logistics of blending their separate lives into one family unit. But they had faced each challenge together, communicating in ways they never had before. Ethan had proven his dedication to their family time and again, prioritizing Noah's school events and family dinners, even during the busiest work periods. Maya had learned to trust not just Ethan's promises, but also her own judgment, believing in the future they were building together. 3 months ago, on an ordinary Tuesday evening after Noah was in bed, Ethan had proposed, not with grand gestures or public displays, but with quiet sincerity as they sat on their back porch talking about their day. Maya had said yes without hesitation, finally ready to fully embrace the second chance they had been given. The doorbell rang, pulling Maya from her thoughts. The first party guests had arrived. "They're here," Noah shouted, running toward the house with Ethan close behind. As Noah greeted his friends and Ethan welcomed the parents, Maya felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. How different her life was now from just a year ago, when she and Noah had boarded that cruise as a family of 2. Later, after cake had been eaten and presents opened, Maya found a moment of quiet with Ethan as they watched Noah playing with his friends. "Happy?" Ethan asked, slipping an arm around her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," Maya replied, leaning into his embrace. "You know, sometimes I still can't believe how everything worked out. If you hadn't decided to take that cruise, or If you hadn't booked the same one, Ethan added. Some might call it fate. I call it a second chance, Maya said. One I'm grateful for every day. Ethan kissed her temple. Me too. And speaking of second chances, I have news. The New York office is finally running smoothly without my constant supervision. The board has officially approved my permanent move to Seattle. No more monthly trips east. Maya turned to face him, joy spreading through her. Really? You're going to be home for good? For good, Ethan confirmed, just in time for the wedding planning to kick into high gear. Daddy, Mommy, come play with us, Noah called from across the yard, waving excitedly. Hand in hand, they joined their son and his friends, laughing as they were drafted into a game of freeze tag. As Maya ran across the grass, trying to avoid being tagged, she caught sight of her engagement ring sparkling in the sunlight. The diamond was set in the same band Ethan had carried in his pocket 7 years ago, the ring she never got to see when fate and fear had separated them. But fate had brought them back together on that cruise ship, and this time they weren't letting go. That night, after the party was over and Noah was asleep in his bed surrounded by new toys, Maya and Ethan sat on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen you that first day on the ship? Ethan asked. If Noah hadn't spotted me and asked if I was his daddy? Sometimes, Maya admitted, but I think we would have found our way back to each other eventually. Some connections are too strong to be lost forever. Ethan nodded, pulling her closer. I think you're right. Some things are just meant to be. As they sat together, planning their future and remembering their past, Maya knew that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, as a family. The time they had lost could never be reclaimed, but the love they had found again was stronger for having weathered the separation, and in the end that was what mattered most. Not the time lost, but the love found.